What is more powerful than buying a weapon? Learning how to build it yourself. Across the world, countries that once depended on others for defense now build their own weapons, missiles, drones, warships, even fighter aircraft. The Philippines today stands at a crossroads. Reports suggest interest in India's Pralay short-range ballistic missile. But the real question is not only whether we should buy the Pralay. It is whether such an acquisition can help us create our own missile industry, one that ensures the Philippines will never again be defenseless. And to understand why, we must look at two rivals in the Middle East, Iran and Israel. Their experiences reveal why the Philippines cannot afford to remain only a buyer of weapons, but must also become a builder. Welcome back to Pinoy Guard. Let us start with Iran. Iran's economy is smaller than the Philippines. Yet it has developed one of the most feared missile arsenals in the region. Analysts estimate that in a single coordinated strike, Iran could fire as many as 500 ballistic missiles at its enemies. These missiles, built domestically, vary in range and payload, from short-range tactical systems to medium-range ballistic missiles capable of reaching Israel and beyond. Now imagine if Iran had to buy all of those missiles instead of producing them itself. If we assume each missile costs at least 500 million pesos, or about 9 million US dollars, then 500 missiles would cost 250 billion pesos, or more than $4.5 billion. That is more than half of the entire annual budget of the armed forces of the Philippines. Clearly, no country with a limited economy can afford to buy that many missiles from foreign suppliers. Iran's solution was to invest in its scientists, engineers, and industry so that missiles could be built locally at a fraction of the cost. On the other hand, Israel took a different path. With a stronger economy, billions of dollars in annual U.S. military aid, and a powerful lobby in Washington, Israel focused on building one of the most capable air forces in the world. The Israeli Air Force can strike far beyond the nation's borders, using advanced American-made jets like the F-35, supported by precision-guided weapons and a layered missile defense system. The contrast is clear. Iran built missiles because it could not rely on air power, while Israel built air power because it had the resources, allies, and funding to sustain it. So what does this mean for the Philippines? Our situation is closer to Iran than Israel. We do not receive billions of dollars in free military aid. We cannot afford a massive air force of stealth fighters and long-range bombers. What we can afford, and what we must learn, is to build our own missiles, just as Iran did. Acquiring foreign-made systems like India's Pralay is not the end goal. It is the first step. By buying a small number of Pralay missiles, the Philippines gains more than just a weapon. It gains the chance to study advanced missile technology, to learn operations and maintenance, to form doctrines, and most importantly, to train Filipino scientists and engineers in rocketry. With the right agreements, India could share knowledge and technology, allowing our universities, our defense research centers, and even our civilian space programs to benefit. Over time, this knowledge could evolve into a homegrown missile industry, producing cheaper, locally made systems tailored for our defense needs. Some will argue, why not just buy more jets, more ships, or more submarines? The answer is cost and survivability. Fighter jets are extremely expensive to acquire, maintain, and operate. A single squadron of advanced multi-role fighters can cost the Philippines more than 100 billion pesos. Maintaining them year after year is another burden. Missiles, on the other hand, are cheaper to produce in bulk, harder for the enemy to fully neutralize, and terrifying in their psychological impact. A truck-mounted missile battery can hide in the jungles of Palawan or the mountains of Luzon. It can relocate after firing, making it difficult to detect and destroy. One missile battery can carry multiple warheads capable of disabling airfields, destroying runways, and striking enemy warships at sea. And if we learn to produce them ourselves, the Philippines could one day have a stockpile large enough to make any aggressor think twice. Let us return to the example of Iran's 500 missiles. If each one costs $9 million, buying them would mean $4.5 billion or 250 billion pesos. That is nearly equivalent to the entire modernization budget for Horizon 3, which covers the Army, Air Force, and Navy combined. But by building them locally, Iran reduces the cost dramatically. Instead of billions, they spend millions. Instead of depending on others, they control the production. That is the real power of developing your own missile capability. If the Philippines follows this path, the cost of an initial purchase from India, say 20 or 30 Pralay missiles at perhaps 20 to 30 billion pesos, would be an investment. It would pay for both capability today and the knowledge to produce more tomorrow. Now let us bring this back home. China already has hundreds, if not thousands, of ballistic missiles deployed along its coast and in its artificial islands. These weapons are pointed not only at the United States, but also at the Philippines. Their purpose is simple: to intimidate and dominate. Without our own missile capability, we remain vulnerable. A small Philippine Air Force squadron could be destroyed on the ground by a sudden missile strike. Our ships could be targeted before they leave port. And our bases in Palawan could be rendered useless in the opening hours of a conflict. But with even a modest Philippine missile arsenal, the equation changes. Suddenly, China's illegal bases in Mischief Reef, Fiery Cross Reef, and Subi Reef are vulnerable. Their warships in the Bashi Channel must stay on guard. Their commanders know that every act of aggression carries the risk of retaliation. This is what we call deterrence. Beyond the weapons themselves, the Philippines must develop doctrine. That means military strategies, training, and command structures that integrate ballistic and cruise missiles into the joint force. It means planning not just how to launch missiles, but when, where, and against what targets. Missiles can defend sovereignty more effectively when paired with other assets. Surveillance drones can identify targets. Radars can track enemy movements. Naval forces can herd hostile ships into missile engagement zones. And the Air Force can provide cover for missile batteries. All of these together form a layered defense, a doctrine of deterrence. But the heart of it will be the missile force, which can strike at any moment. And this is where Filipino scientists come in. The Philippines already has engineers trained in aerospace, electronics, and propulsion. Universities are producing graduates capable of working in rocketry. What is missing is the bridge, the transfer of real-world military missile technology into our academic and industrial base. By acquiring systems like the Pralay, the Philippines can create that bridge. Teams of Filipino scientists could study the guidance systems, propulsion units, and warhead designs under controlled cooperation agreements. Over time, they can adapt these into our own locally produced designs. This is how nations rise from being customers to creators. So what is the lesson? Iran proved that even a nation with a smaller economy than the Philippines can field hundreds of missiles that terrify its neighbors. Israel proved that if you have the economy and the allies, you can build a powerful air force. The Philippines cannot afford Israel's path. But it can follow Iran's lesson, not in politics, but in technology. Missiles are the great equalizer for nations with limited resources. And the only sustainable way to have them in large numbers is to build them ourselves. Acquiring India's Pralay is not just about hitting Chinese bases. It is about training our people, building our industry, and preparing for a future where the Philippines no longer waits for help but stands on its own. Because in the end, sovereignty is not defended by promises. It is defended by power. And power, for the Philippines, could mean missiles built by Filipino hands, ready to strike when our nation is threatened. Word count \1 for 20. Would you like me to also create a cost comparison breakdown table, buying versus producing missiles, that you can use as a visual insert in your video to make this point stronger?